Most men operate under an illusion that undermines their strength. The world insists they belong to vast benevolent collectives, what I call macro communities. These groups that exist on a scale far beyond what a man's instincts and mind can actually support. The macro community is pitched as a source of identity, meaning, and obligation. But its size and abstract nature guarantee one thing: it's built to serve the needs of the herd, not the individual, and certainly not the tribe. To break this spell, you have to see the clear distinction between macro community and micro community. A micro community is what you would call a real tribe. It's made up of people you know, trust, and interact with directly. People like family, loyal friends, and tight alliances. These are functional groups where accountability and reciprocity are real. Science calls out this distinction too. Dunbar's number, which is the cognitive limit of stable relationships for humans, hovers around 150. Go beyond this number, and genuine connection gets diluted into ritual, bureaucracy, and abstraction. The further you get from Dunbar's number, the more you're operating in a herd. Macro communities are different. They exist above this natural limit. You can call them nations, religions, professional scenes, or the so-called world community. These groups are too large for real personal alliances. Instead, they operate through symbols, narratives, and mass psychology. They sell you the promise of global brotherhood, but you become a spectator, a follower, and ultimately a resource to be managed. Consider the consequences of buying into the macro community myth. A man begins to believe his obligations and emotional investments should be as wide as the world itself. He wastes his attention on distant conflicts and trends, convinced that every headline demands his allegiance. He mourns for strangers, donates energy and resources to causes that yield nothing for his family or his people, and grows addicted to the feeling of belonging to something big. But none of this investment returns real power or security. When trouble hits, the macro community offers nothing concrete. No support, no loyalty, no survival advantage. This isn't a theoretical problem. Let's get specific. You could take a man raised in the Brooklyn projects, for example, and put him next to one from a rural Texas farm and call them both Americans. They'll even join the same army. In practice, however, their backgrounds, instincts, and priorities are incompatible. They won't naturally rely on each other when the stakes are real. Their sense of alliance and obligation was never forged by shared risk or common struggle, only by the abstract labels and symbols of the macro community. When you expect men with nothing in common but a flag to operate as brothers, you're asking them to override instincts that have kept tribes alive for millennia. This is why it makes sense, and is no surprise, that men like these must have their identities melted down and reforged in boot camps, military training, and other shared high-pressure group experiences before they even begin to look at each other through a micro or tribal lens. The macro community stamp is too weak to override their offset instincts, histories, and values. Only when they're broken out of their old identities and forced to suffer, adapt, and overcome together do they start to see one another as real allies. Shared struggle creates a new common identity rooted in tangible experience, not abstract slogans or wishful intent. It is the crucible of hardship and mutual reliance that forges micro-community out of a crowd. Until that happens, the group remains a collection of strangers, bound only by paperwork and narrative, not true brotherhood. This artificial pressure isn't accidental, of course. The more a man identifies with the macro community, the easier he is to manage. Assimilation into the herd provides him with pre-approved opinions, ready-made enemies, and pre-packaged narratives. He's swept along by the current, told where to direct his outrage and when to offer his submission. The macro community wants you invested emotionally in events and people you cannot influence. The net result of the whole thing is a population of men who have absolutely nothing left for the micro community that actually relies on them. The modern man has been taught to spread his loyalty across the planet, as if emotional energy, or cognitive ability for that matter, is infinite. He's molded to feel guilt or shame for putting his tribe first, and pride for dissipating his energy in every direction except the ones that actually matter. The result? It's weakness. His tribe, his micro-community, get neglected while he's distracted by the endless crises and the rituals of the herd. Even the tightest scenes are infected by this logic. Take something from my world, the so-called jiu-jitsu community. The current internet story goes that everyone on the mat belongs to some worldwide brotherhood. In reality, these are temporary alliances held together by convenience, ritual, and the moment's incentives. When things get difficult or resources get scarce, those bonds dissolve, exposing the fiction of it all. There are cliques and rivalries because humans are wild for tribes, not herds. Participation is not alliance, and borrowed ritual does not create real loyalty. A common culture does not a community make. Macro-community narratives are tools of control, and their preferred weapon is emotional manipulation. The media, institutions, and online platforms reward men for getting worked up about faraway, disconnected causes. They want your outrage, your grief, your investment. What you don't realize is that your attention and energy are being siphoned off for somebody else's benefit. Meanwhile, the people under your roof, the men in your corner, and the family that counts on you are left with the scraps. There is a hard limit to how many people a man can actually know and trust. Dunbar's number isn't just an academic curiosity. It's the dividing line between real alliances and imaginary ones. If your energy is spent on people outside of your micro-community, you are weakening your core. No amount of sentiment or symbolism can replace functional trust and proven reciprocity. Micro-communities, on the other hand, operate on action, investment, and accountability. You know your tribe by the risks you're willing to take for them and the risks they're willing to take for you. It's never a question of hashtags or slogans or global rituals. It's always about who you can count on when you need backup and who depends on you for the same. When you surrender your sense of identity to the macro community, you are volunteering to be managed. The herd will give you a script, hand you causes, drain your emotional reserves for no return. In the process, you can neglect the only community that can actually save you when it counts. Men who live for the herd die faceless and forgotten. Men who invest in their micro-community, who draw a clear line between tribe and herd, build legacy, protection, and power. I'm asking you, compelling you, reject the myth of the macro community. Direct your attention and investment to the alliances that matter, to the men and families who will stand with you when things go sideways, when things fall apart. Measure every relationship by what it can withstand, not what it promises in theory. The further you get from Dunbar's number, the more abstract and unreliable your alliances become. The closer you stay to your tribe, however, the stronger and more sovereign you are. These aren't popular lessons in a world obsessed with global belonging, mind you, but they are necessary if you intend to be more than just another voice in the herd. If this resonates with you, if you're looking for a place where men can talk, plan, and build with this type of clarity, know that these are issues that we address in my mastermind group for men, the 3 Roads Mastermind. To see if registration is currently open, do me a favor, do yourself a favor, go visit 3roadsgroup.com. You'll find the men who understand the difference between tribe and herd waiting for you there. As always, brothers and sisters, I appreciate you, and pressure to power.